welcome to the Habibis podcast, where we talk about video games, Arab culture, and life. I am your host, Rami Ismail.
And I'm Osama Dorias.
And I am Fawzi Mesmar.
Hi, guys. How have you all been? How's your week been? What have you been up to?
I played a couple of games. I started Cyberpunk 2077
Right.
Ooh, the
without
big one.
spoilers. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm not quite sure it's a big one because I finished a part that felt like it should have been like a prologue because a thing happened at the end of that part, and I was curious to see how far I was in the game. So I went online and I looked at my mission name, and it seems like I'm halfway through the game after the prologue, and I'm a little confused about all that. So is the game much shorter than what I anticipated, than what I expected?
Man, you're
I
talking so
guess.
much in code. It's hard for me to say. I've played an amount of time, after which some things happen, after which an amount
Well,
of time seems shorter than another amount of time I had in mind.
yeah, I suppose we could.
It's dangerous spoiler territory in any way. Anyway, you could try to step into this.
But okay, yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
the only thing I'll say that's not a spoiler is that it feels a lot more linear than I expected for CD Projekt open world game. Um, it's not necessarily negative. I still have a ways to go, and hopefully things will pick up. What's there is enjoyable. There were a few lulls, but yeah, I can't wait to finish it and actually give you my thoughts on it.
So, Sam, just like I want, since you're playing the open world bit, what do you think of it as an open world game? Like the open world itself, is
Yeah,
it fun? Is it cool? Is it curious? What do you think of it?
it's there. It's pretty and it's there, and you get through it to go to the marker on your map. But it like in a weird way, it doesn't really feel like it's alive. Like I don't, and I can't really put my finger on why. There are AI. They're walking around. They're going about their business. They're talking to each other. But it all seems, and I know how AI works. So this is normal in a open world game. But it seems more performative than usual. Like they're set pieces. Like conversation starts when you walk up to them between each other. It's not like they've been talking and you're like kind of eavesdropping on them. It seems like it just started there, and then they start like, for example, they start shooting at each other right away. So it feels kind of like you're walking through a play that's happening.
It's like
That
a Truman Show effect. Everybody is
Yeah,
ready, set to go when you go around the corner.
yeah, but that's my impression I have. I still, it doesn't feel alive. It doesn't feel like anything's happening there until you show up. That's my impression of it.
Hmm.
Huh.
Interesting.
Did you have the same experience, Fauzi?
Um, uh, 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 yeah, like that you've mentioned it that way. I kind of did. Yeah, I think like it's with the kind of single player game. I'm expecting to be the center of the universe. I'm not sure what that says about me, but
Yeah,
about in the game, I guess. Is that I expect like when I roll out stuff to happen. But it was hard for me to tell like if this stuff were supposed to happen this way or like some of these things were happening because of bugs. I played it like really early on. So I was kind of like questioning myself the entire time. It's like, oh, these things, these people just went at it and started shooting each other. Were they supposed to do that? Like, like there was a bunch of times I was asking myself that as that happened early on. But I was just too focused on the campaign for the most
yeah.
part early on.
I had a really funny, interesting bug that I could tell you about that I thought stood out. I was in a restaurant speaking to an NPC, which was part of the Golden Path, the single player campaign. And all of a sudden, this NPC walks into the restaurant towards us, stops like right in front of us to the point that I thought it was part of the cutscene, like just standing in front of us, looking at us, lifts one leg up like a flamingo, smiles at me, and at this point, he has my entire attention. I'm like, what's going on? And then suddenly disappears, never to be seen again. I just like the game is peppered with these AI bug moments that, to be honest, like I knew what, like I read game news, so I knew what to expect. So at
Hmm.
this point, I am just like I laugh them off, and they don't bother me anymore. But they do break immersion,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, I totally get it. I think like like the thing that caught a lot of my attention from the open world perspective is more of like the world building aspect of it. Like
Yeah.
the fiction and the lore that goes into everything from like the signpostage to like the shops, what stuff they're selling, that the pieces of lore that you find around. Like I enjoy being a tourist in that game's world.
Yeah, I have to 100% agree. The world building is phenomenal. It really, really does feel like they put a lot of thought and effort into it. That's probably where most of their effort went. Absolutely.
Ah, cool, man. What about
Yeah.
like, other systems in the
Yeah.
game that you like? I don't know, shooting or something like that.
I thought the hacking had some interesting ideas. I don't think the shooting was anything special. If you've played a first-person shooter, it's pretty good for an RPG. Like better than most RPGs. But yeah, the skill tree is the last thing I'm going to talk about. The skill tree is a lot of passives in there, not a lot of things that actually change the gameplay. I would have appreciated if it was a little bit more. I'm going to unlock this thing that's going to change the way I approach it. It's not something that's just going to make me better. Yeah. So yeah, what about you, Fuzzy? What have you been playing?
I played a bunch of multiplayer games actually this week. So two that I want to talk about. One is called Phasmophobia.
Oh,
You guys
nice.
heard of this?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's a really interesting game. It's really fun to play with a bunch of friends. So this is like a co-op online horror game, in which like you and a group of friends, you need to go and explore a location. It could be like a house, it could be a prison. There's all sorts of like weird places that you can go to, and together you need to like there's a ghost, or like I don't know, a spooky creature of some sort there, and you need to collect enough evidence to know what kind of spooky creature it is without any of your crew members dying or something. Like get enough information, get in the van, and then get the hell out of there. And if you get the information right, then you get enough money that will allow you to buy more gadgets, so that you'll be able to collect more information about more spooky creatures.
So
It,
you're just getting information. You're not actually like you're not a ghost buster. You're not like
no,
putting
no,
out a
no,
trap and
you're not busting the ghost. No, not at all. And it's an interesting mechanic in this game is that it also like it can pick up your microphone, so you can speak into the microphone and stuff happens. So like, and sometimes you need to kind of like speak to the. I keep saying ghost because like most of the time you don't see them, but it's like
yeah.
astral being of some sort.
Right, like a poltergeist or a
Yeah,
djinn or
exactly.
a
Oh,
whatever.
Jin, like there's different sorts of like creatures, and like identifying which part is the objective of the game.
Right.
So like sometimes like this creature will only manifest if you're alone and you're speaking their name, and her name is Jenny. So like, so one of us will have to go in, and everybody else is outside and go like, hello, Jenny, is that you? And then like, because we want her to appear so that we can get the information to know what's going on. And it's just that so many funny situations when you're playing with friends, especially like if one of your friends gets spooked easily. It's just so much fun. Like every time, oh my god, it's here, and like people starts running away, and like all sorts of shit. I'm dead. There's like all sorts of yelling, and then there's like the factual I'm dead. I think, oh my god, I'm dead, guys, I'm dead.
That sounds phenomenal. I can't wait to try it.
It's cool. It's cool. I recommend it. Um, the
Is
other
it
game.
finished? Like I heard it was in early access. Is it launched yet or not?
I got it on Steam. I think it's launched. I can check now.
It,
It doesn't
from
say
what I
early
understand,
access
it's
or
sort of
anything on
like
Steam.
underway beta. Like they're continuing to update it is the most important part, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like if I open the Steam page right now in my library, it doesn't say that it's in early access.
Did you try VR?
With this game? Oh no!
Yeah,
Oh my
I think
god!
you can play VR.
Do you want to kill Fauzi, Rami? Is that what you want?
No, I just want to be on the laughing side of this for once.
If you
Because I'm there.
His second
I can't play
suggestion is
horror
like,
games.
have you played it in VR? Have you tried streaming it?
or
Yeah,
definitely record yourself
just
if you're gonna play in VR. Absolutely. That would,
yeah, or we'll just make it an episode. Fuzzy plays Phasmophobia, and Osama just sit
I
in.
love it. Sign me up.
It's me and Osama sit here in a very well lit room.
I thought it was me and my Habibis catching some afarit. No.
Oh my god! Yeah, no, Phasmophobia is really good. What's the other one? You said you were playing too.
Yeah, the other one I'm playing on the Switch is called Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. A very short title.
Yeah. No, so are you playing 51 worldwide classics? Is it just board games?
It's a bunch of board games like they have chess, they have shogi, they have mahjong. I really like to play Richi mahjong, so you can play that online and local, which is great.
Okay.
And they have like a whole bunch of like range from couch co-op to two switches to online. And there's a
Okay.
bunch of cool stuff on there. It's a lot of fun.
Do they have Tola?
They do. They do.
Oh, nice,
They have tawla, yeah. They have tawla, they
nice.
have chess,
Anib?
they have backgammon. Yeah, it's really from all over the world. There's
Wow.
like some Indian classic games, there's like ancient Roman games.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff. Like one of the things I used to love to do in Japan, or like even with some of my friends in Berlin, we used to like do mahjong night. This is four people, just playing. You just sit around the table, and this can go on for the entire night, and you just talking and stuff and like playing mahjong. And this game initially I was interested in it because it was the substitute for that, and then it just evolved into something I do regularly now for whenever I
Nice.
just want to catch up with somebody and do something. If chess is your thing, if you watch like Netflix and you're into chess now, this could be also a
Of
good way.
course.
I used to play chess a lot. I actually used to play on in like children's national level back
Oh
in the
wow.
Oh
days.
wow!
But it also means that every time I have to play chess, I have like that weird burden of expectation of, oh god, I hope I'm still good. So I haven't quite touched it too much lately. But I've been trying. I've been wanting to go back into chess.
Apparently, it's the best time to come back now. It's like it's
Yeah,
bigger than ever.
I used to organize chess tournaments at a community center when I was really young, when I was like 18, 17. We
that's not really young, Osama. 18 is like when you're an adult.
it's like such a long time ago. I'm old, so for me, that's really young. But yeah, so the interesting thing is, my dad taught me to play chess, and then he made me never want to play chess again, because my dad can take an infinite amount of time for a single move and not care. And at the end, like I thought of what I wanted to do, and I just don't care anymore. I'm not invested in the game, and he will not allow me to walk away. I can't concede. I have to make the game end. So I never knew if I could actually beat my dad, because I would like start a game, be excited, say this is my time, and then forfeit like by just making the dumbest move so you could take my king because I was fed up and I wanted to walk away from this 4 hour game. I didn't have that much of an attention span. So I played with my friends, and we'd play with a chess clock because that was the only way I could enjoy the game at that point. And then that evolved into organizing this. People saw us play; they wanted to join. The group got bigger, and I organized these long full day tournaments where other people's parents would show up. And get frustrated at the chess clock because they just want to take forever to do their move. It was almost a generational thing. Like everyone who was my age was like, "Oh, chess clock, great! This is how I could stay engaged and invested in this game." And everyone was like,
Yeah, parents are a thing.
"Yeah."
I mean, my dad was my coach in a lot of things I did. Right, like my dad ended up being my a chess coach of mine, and he ended up being my soccer coach for a long time. My dad always wanted to coach whatever I was involved in. It was always kind of, oh god, you're the coach's kid now. I don't know, like Arab parents. I don't know. How about you? Like Arab parents, I always feel like have a lot of expectations, like just very high expectations. Is that a thing?
Oh, dude, like it was like I think it's standard. If you're going into going into the work field, the dream is that one day you'll be a doctor or a engineer or a
Yep.
lawyer. And like I remember, like I was very young, so my dad was a pharmacist. And he worked on pharmaceuticals his entire life and all of this. I remember, I still remember to this day how disappointed he was when I was like, I was very young. I was like, Dad, I don't know what it is, but I think I really hate chemistry. And he was like, no, chemistry is actually cool, Faz. You need to consider it a little bit more. I was like, yeah, no, it's just boring. I think I want to make games instead. And he was like, no, Fauzi, listen to me. One day you're gonna grow older. You're not gonna be into this game stuff. You're gonna have like real interests, like football and cars and chemistry, apparently.
Yeah, mostly chemistry. Like cars, okay, but cars move on chemistry, right? You Fuzzy? You understand, right?
Exactly.
He should have just played video games run on computers, and computers work based on physics.
There you go.
There was an
It's
angle
always
that you missed there, Fawzi.
الرابط العجيب is what's happening. No, I think that, the idea of going into games, I think, is one of those things that my parents were not entirely against it, but they're kind of like having a hard time understanding it. I don't know. It's about you guys. Do you guys know what you do? Your parents, are like know what you're doing.
Oh, they don't understand. My parents, neither of them really understand what it is I'm doing right now. And when I first wanted to get into games, what was hilarious is growing up, I loved to draw. I really did. And my dad saw the writing on the wall. He's like, okay, you're not going to be an artist. Like he just sat me down one day. He's like, this is not a valid career path. I have artist friends. They don't make money. They always ask me to borrow money from me. So you're not going to be an artist. Find something else. So the clever 14-year-old me was like, okay, I'm going to be an architect because then I still get to draw, but it's like kind of in that loose category of engineering where my parents will be happy. So that's where I set my goals. It didn't work out. Long story short,
Mhm.
eventually I did get into games, and my dad was like, "Oh yeah, I've been reading about it, and that's a very big business. Okay, good for you." And he just like kind of was like, "There's money involved." My dad's a businessman. He's a petroleum engineer who became a businessman when we moved to Montreal, where there is no petroleum, so like he had to adapt. So he's like, "Oh, okay, money. There's a lot of money in this industry. Good, go for it." My mom was like, "Oh, for now, right?" And then she keeps sending me like job postings for other things because she couldn't understand what it is I was doing, so she couldn't explain it to her friends. And because she can't explain it to her friends, it's not a good job, right? Like a good job is one that when they sit down together, that they could like brag about. Like my son did this and my son did that.
Right.
She can't tell them that I play games, and to her, I play games. That's what I do day in and day out, and
Right.
that's not an impressive thing. Did you have a similar? Oh, I have one story to share about this. The moment my mom accepted what I do for a living, I know the exact day that it happened. She called me up and she said that she bought a Nintendo for me. This was 8 years ago. She said she bought a Nintendo for me so that I could work with it.
Wow.
And I was like, Mom? Like back then, I can't remember which console was out. It was like I think it was the original Wii, and I already had a Wii. And I'm like, you bought a Nintendo, but why? I already have a Nintendo. She's like, oh well, you can never have too much. And I said, okay, so I'm gonna come over and check out what you actually bought. And she came, and like when I went over, she came out of her room and she had this box, and she's like, oh, I got it from the flea market, and I'm like, oh. And she said, yeah, I only paid $8 for it. And I said, "Oh, What's in this box?" And she took out a Sega Dreamcast with 4 controllers that was fully functional.
Wow.
Wow.
And I was shocked. I already had one with 4 controllers and fully functional, but now I have one that I get to keep at her house and one at my house. But that's the extent of what my mom understood from my job.
Right.
I have consoles, I sit in front of them, and games happen. So
My dad always growing up, I was always I don't know, like you get a nickname, right? And my nickname was Mohandas, like engineer, right? Mohandas Rami. And I think that was always sort of the expectation. I was a smart kid, and my dad thought, well, this kid is going to work for NASA. And I had to explain to him later that NASA is in the United States and not actually a thing that I can do as a European. Um, but the thing that I always found fascinating is I think a lot of it comes from necessity, right? Like a lot of that pushing for engineering, lawyer, doctor, it comes from in the world that they grew up in, having a job that pays well is super important. And having a job that you can talk to your friends about, the status, is important. So I always tried to find a way to convince him that what I was doing was engineering. So I tried to tell him that I was a programmer, right? And a computer engineer. And it worked for a while, but he knew I was really into computer games. So I guess he figured out that it was games after all. And he calls it playing computer, but he's been supportive in like strange ways. I think I must have been 7 or 8 years old. And I really wanted the PlayStation, had just come out, right? So I asked my dad, like, okay, dad, I would like a PlayStation. I will take my birthday money, right? All the money I get from my birthday from the entire family, and I will buy a PlayStation video game, and then you will buy the PlayStation, and then I can play the video games. So he went, and I came back, and it was my birthday at the end of October, and it was cold, and I got the box, and I unpacked it, and in it was a PlayStation box. So I opened the PlayStation box, and I grabbed the device, and it looked like a PlayStation, and I opened it up to put the disc in, and there was a cartridge slot.
Oh, it's
Oh,
one of
And I
those.
look at the box again, and instead of PlayStation, it says Polystation.
oh no, oh no.
And I'm like, Dad, what is this? He's like, oh, it's a PlayStation. It's PlayStation. I'm like, no, it's not that. That's not a PlayStation. It's a Polystation. He's like, Polystation, PlayStation, all is the same. It's all the same. Right? I went to the black market. I talked to the guy. I'm like, you went to the black market? He's like, I went to the black market. I talked to the guy. He said, this is the best you can get. It has 99 games in it already.
Oh,
Right? I'm like, what do you mean it has 99 games in it already? He's like, but it, like, play the PlayStation. I'm like, it's not a PlayStation. He's like, just play it. And I booted it up, and it was in the shell of a PlayStation. It was, I think, a NES with 10 games on it that were repeated 9 times. But the repeats were all slight mods of the actual game, right? So you had Super Mario Bros. And then game 14 was Super Luigi Bros, where just the sprites for Mario and Luigi were swapped. And then 22 was like Super Goomba Bros, and the sprite was. And then there was one where you started in the underwater world, which was my least favorite.
Everybody's.
yes.
And that was my first console. I did not have a console again until I was like living on my own when I was like 18 or 19 or something. But he tried to be supportive of it. I
Yeah,
think
the intention is there.
the thing that he just didn't want me to play games, and it takes a long time for it took a long time for my dad to understand that that's not what I did. I think the moment he really got it was 2 or 3 years ago at the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. I was getting this prestigious prize, an ambassador award for the work I'd been doing in the games industry, and I flew my parents out, and they got at the front of this giant room full of game developers. My dad sat down at the table. He looks at me and goes like, Rami, are all these people here for you? I'm like, no, Dad. No. Listen, this is a full night of ceremony. There's a ton of people here. They're not just here for me. They're here for the entire night, right? They're here for all the prizes, all the games. And my dad looks at me. He's like, okay. And then it was my turn, and I get announced to go on the stage, and the room just erupted in this standing ovation that lasted for like 15, 20, 30 seconds, to the point of the teleprompter going like, okay, start speaking. And I come back down, and I sit down next to my dad, and he looks at me. He's like, I told you they're here for you.
Wow.
And I think that was the first time where he really just got like, okay, what he's doing, I don't understand it, but clearly it's important. Clearly it's worthy of like respect, and clearly it makes him money enough to keep doing what he does. So I'm good now. He still asks what I'm playing, so I don't think it fully worked.
That's pretty
That's a
cool, man.
beautiful story. That's
Yeah,
great.
man.
It's been
How
nice.
was
It also makes me worry for all the other Arabs who don't get to do that exact same thing.
yes.
Just be like, no, it's a real job.
Your mom definitely understands your job a lot more now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My mom was funny because she's Dutch, so she has a very different attitude to work. Right. Like her attitude to work is do something that makes you happy. Does it make money? Okay. Does it not make money? Okay. And she'd secretly, I noticed this later, she had secretly been reading all of this games news for years while I was traveling in the past decade. So that when I would come home, we didn't have to talk about all the work stuff, and we could just talk about how I was doing and what's up in life. And so I came back from a trip one day, and I just went like, "Yeah, no, I was visiting Phil," and she's like, "Oh, Phil, which one? Spencer,
Wow.
Kwiatkowski, Fish?"
Oh
I'm like,
wow.
Wow.
"How do you know all these names?" And she's like, "Oh, I see them on your Facebook." I'm like, "No, you don't. Are you reading games news?" And mom's like, "Yes, just to keep up with what you're doing." I'm like, "Well, have you played a video game then?" She's like, "No, I haven't played a video game." I'm like, "We're gonna find you a video game." So I we decided for her. She said that she really liked sort of like the Lord of the Rings-esque stories, but the only Lord of the Rings games that were out there are like the War for Middle Earth and stuff like that. Those are pretty violent games. So I looked for a game where a bunch of boys, a small crew of boys, goes and on an adventure that ends with them slaying God, and that ended up being Final Fantasy 15. And she loved it. It was really hard for her to play. The controls were very complicated. She did all of these things that just didn't feel to me were surprising. Right? She'd come across this character dressed in all black, and it's the antagonist, Arden. The antagonist of Final Fantasy 15 is called Arden, and she was gonna come across him, and she would call me whenever something big happened. So she called me, and she's like, Rami, I came across a shady guy. I'm like, okay, what happened? She's like, well, I was near Golden Key, and I'm like, oh, good, that's where you meet Arden. And I came across this shady guy, and Arden is just like Japanese like tropes, right? Like this shady sort of shifting character. You never know whether he's an ally or an enemy. He has all of those tropes. I'm just like, let's see what mom recognizes of those tropes. I'm like, so who did you mean? She's like, well, the shady guy, he's dressed in all black. I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. She's like, I just got a bad feeling from him. I'm like, cool. She's like, yeah, I walked up to him and he was just like, you want to buy some weapons? And I was like, I ran away. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, he was, you want to buy guns or swords or something? And I just didn't trust her. You walked into a shopkeeper? She's like, a what? I'm like,
This is what every sane person would react to a random guy coming up to his, hey, do you want a clock? How
There-
about two? Huh?
but my mom has really sort of shown me that there's this language of video games that we've just sort of become accustomed. Like, there's a crack in the wall. We go like, good, let's break it down. And the mom's just like, this building is not
Yeah,
safe. We should go outside.
I'm not stepping in here. Oh, that's so good. That is
So
so
she's been
good.
playing for 2 years now. She knows what I do, and she's always been sort of curious about how it works. So every now and then, I end up explaining programming problems to her or things like that, which has been good exercise because I do a lot of public speaking where I'm not necessarily talking to game developers or gamers. So knowing how to explain things in a way that is accessible to people has been really fun. Um, but it's funny
I
because
absolutely love following your mom on Twitter. I really think everyone who's listening should do the same. I'm plugging her Twitter for you, but it's at Moms versus Games,
yeah,
and it's really like you get a little bit of that insight that Rami's talking about just from seeing her play. I think she's on Ghost of Tsushima now,
yeah, she's playing
and
Ghost.
Right.
yeah, it's incredible.
It's
It's eye
great. The
opening.
screenshot you posted today about Ghost, I was like, oh my god, that's so right. Like, why don't I think about these things anymore? I'm like so wrapped up in gaming
Yeah.
language.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It opens you up to thinking about these assumptions of how things work. Like dual stick. Like a lot of games go like push the left stick to walk, push the right stick to move the camera. And then I look at my mom and she's just pushing these two sticks and being like, I don't know what's happening. I'm like, oh, right. Okay, maybe this is more complicated than we thought, right? And she made me think about accessibility. Like for my mom, blood is a big no. So being able to turn off blood in a game is huge. But at the same time, being able to play with how pressing buttons rapidly works, right? Like holding a button instead of tapping it, being able to get a little bit more time on a lot of decisions helps a lot. Slow motion helps a lot. Being able to adjust how much damage enemies can take more than how much damage she can take helps a lot, right? There's just these lots of little things. My mom is pretty good at video games, honestly. Like she her reflexes are not the sort of reflexes you need to play a lot of the more complex games, but if you adjust a little bit in the accessibility, she played Uncharted 4, right, and got through it, even though she hates aiming with guns, but she loves aiming with bow and arrows because usually those come with a slowdown mechanic, and that's kind of like how you start looking at it. It's just fascinating.
My dad used to like really like to like we used to wake up early in the morning, my brother and I, and go immediately to the game console. If we can sneak like an hour or something or half an hour before school time, we'll play.
All right.
Or like on the weekend, we wake up early just to play video games or whatever. And like my dad had this hobby of like bringing his morning coffee and like sit there and watch us play. And like early on when we were like playing, MSX or Atari or Mega Drive and this kind of stuff, he was like, yeah, like jump on that thing, or like he'll be participating by backseat gaming.
Right.
I think like it was at one point we were playing PlayStation and we were playing Resident Evil. And my dad was sitting there, like, he's doing this thing. He was like, watching this, like, I'm going to watch these kids play some video games. And then, like, a bunch of zombies eating a carcass on the floor. And my dad, like, I've never seen him being this shocked. It's like, oh my god, what is this world going to? I was like, Dad, what's going on? What is this evil? I was like, what's going on? It's like a human being eating his brother human being. What does this game do? I was like, Dad, none of these are human beings. Like, they're eating each other. He was like completely in shock
Yeah,
for a
my
while.
parents played video games with us when we were young as well. Actually, I'm happy to hear that that was the case for you two as well. They all had their favorite games, and my dad was addicted to this platformer called Wonder Boy on the Sega,
Uh,
yeah, on the Sega Master System, and Duck Hunt. But like,
Yeah.
sorry, not Duck Hunt. It was a Safari Hunt. It was a Duck Hunt, yeah, later on. But Safari Hunt was the one that came with the Sega Master System, and it was kind of like Duck Hunt, but you shoot a whole bunch of animals instead of just ducks. He absolutely loved that game. Uh, the thing is, what drove us crazy is he loved racing games, but he wouldn't race. He would drive, and he would, like, follow the rules and stay within the guidelines, and we would be racing and winning, and he just didn't care. He's just putting along the entire course of the race, and we'd have to wait for him to finish. Like, he loved Gran Turismo, but he was not playing it the way you're supposed to be playing it. And the shocking part is that I still can't put my finger on how they choose which games they like or not. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Like, one of my parents' favorite games I used to play against each other was Super Puzzle Fighter.
What?
They had never played a puzzle game before, or as far as I know, even since. But that game specifically, it touched a chord for them, and they would compete with us and with each other about it. My dad, still once in a while, he's like, "Okay, put on the puzzle game." He doesn't even know its name. He's just like, because it's the only puzzle game that they're playing. It's really interesting to see how that game is not. It's not simple, right?
yeah.
You have to have some kind of a foundation to be able to play it, and yet, you know, they they
Yeah.
gravitated to it.
It's a hell of a game to get into as well. Really good game.
Right.
Yeah.
Like my parents, I think for the longest of time, like explaining what a game designer does is really difficult, even for like
Oh
people in
yeah.
the industry sometimes. uh, like game design out of a lot of things. Like an artist do art, a programmer do programs, a game designer does graphics design. No, they do art. No, they do animation. No, they make games. And like try to explain a little bit of what that is
It's
always a
always too simple or too hard. You either go like, "Oh, so you're the ideas person." It's like, no, 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 no,
yeah,
no. I come up with ideas, but then I implement and test them to make sure that they're well, and I balance them, and the people are like, "So you come up with ideas?" It's like, no, no, no. Or it's like, so yeah, we play with like the abstract rule set behind the game to convey a certain experience to the play, and it's like, okay, I don't understand that either. Like, there's no middle ground explanation of what a game designer is. You
exactly.
can't be like, well.
Exactly. It's so tricky to
Yeah,
kind of
on a
like
small project, you could kind of say like it's kind of like what a director does for a movie. But once you get to a big project and you actually have directors and designers, directors have split roles, it becomes really hard to explain that off as well. Like, yeah, I haven't found a perfect way to explain it.
yeah. I like I the best way I came up with was like close to but it's also it have to involve to some kind of way to play video games. So like a game artist would draw Mario. A programmer would say Mario would jump when you press a button. A game designer would say there is a world, and in this world there is a Mario, and Mario jumps when you press a button, and then they work with artists and programmers to make that a reality, and then they tweak how fast or high Mario reacts to that button
Right, so you're
press.
the ideas guy.
Uh, so there you go. We're back to square one. Exactly. So my dad actually for the longest of time he thought that I was doing
Yeah.
animation.
Yeah.
So like so he does the Arab thing when he's in the family. It's like my son, he's one of the pioneers in the world of animation. And I'm like, Dad, no. And it's like, no, like you see those cartoons, they make billions of dollars everywhere. My son makes billions of dollars. I'm like, Dad, no,
No,
no, not even close.
it
uh,
is really funny to see because my dad is clearly very proud of what I do, but he does like the animation. I got the same thing. He thought I was in animation for a while. I think I have a cousin in animation as well, and I think it's kind of like the last cutting edge technology that he recognizes, where he's
yeah.
like, oh yeah, animation. That was when they were kids, I remember them watching Captain Magic. I remember watching them play Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay, he's an animator, but
Here's the ideas, guy.
in terms of just games, I don't think there's a lot of games my dad nowadays would just care about. I think he
Mhm.
cared about like the little arcadey games, and he understands my career now. So there's not really a point to him playing a lot of games anymore. He's just a little intimidated by the technology, and it just doesn't add much to his life anymore. I think it's been fun to have him sort of accept, my job, and I think it's one of the parts why um, I'm so focused on trying to be a visible Arab slash Muslim in the industry, right? Like, I don't want to hide that because I know that if there's a kid out there that can just point at me or one of you two or one of the other like visible Arabs or Muslims in the industry, that would really help, right? To just be like, oh, look at them in the games industry, having respect, having an income, having these big projects that people care about. It's a real job.
Making billions in animation, apparently.
Right. It's just so rich drawing frames of animation every day. Yeah, no, what is his job? So he has game ideas.
Let's give ideas. And occasionally moonlights for billions of
I,
dollars for animation.
I know. So that's kind of wow. We went on a big detour here. Like, what we were talking
Yeah, man.
about what games we were playing.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking, we were talking about chess at some point. This started with 51 club games and then went up for 51 minutes about everything
Right.
else.
I don't know. I haven't.
What have you been playing, Rami?
I haven't been playing that much. I will honestly admit, like same thing as last week. So I've been playing Flight Simulator.
I almost got away with it, and we caught
Right.
him.
But I've been watching some movies. I've been trying to catch up on movies. I have WandaVision that I want to start watching because
Oh, I heard
it
that's
looks
good.
interesting.
2 episodes came out, right? On this.
That's what I heard. I watched I never watched the Dragon Ball Super version of the Broly movie, so I watched that too. That was fun. I've been playing a bunch of indie games because I'm on a lot of those like panels, to figure out what the best indie game of the year was. So I've been playing a lot of little indie games. I came across a few good ones that might be worth checking out for you too.
Yeah. Any recommendations? Send
Yeah.
them my way.
Yeah.
So I played a game called Hadr, Hadr. It's about a carpet, and you anything you cover with the carpet disappears from the world.
Oh, I saw a video of that.
It's
Oh,
really strange, but it's a very I can't say that it sustains the level of interest you have at it at the start, but it's just a really clever mechanic that
Hmm.
I personally hadn't come across.
Hmm.
Um, I played If Found. If you haven't played If Found,
I played the Found.
If Found is just incredibly interesting. It very impactful as well. A lot of it is about erasing and rebuilding a life. I think was one of the sort of
That's a good way to put it, actually. Yeah.
right. It's just a fascinating game, right? A lot of things are happening, and what it is it isn't necessarily what it seems, but talking about what it is versus what it seems would kind of push away some of the impact of it.
Mhm.
I played more of Project Wingman. If any of you like Ace Combat, Project Wingman is indie Ace Combat made by 3 people, which is completely bonkers that they could make that.
That's crazy.
Oh,
S Combat 7 was like my second best game of the year, the year it came out.
it's so good. It's so good, and it was genuinely good again in this indie version.
Nice.
And I played so many indie games. I'm trying to think. If you haven't played Haven, Haven was like surprising. Like I've been following it for a few years now, but it's a game about relationships and traveling through
It
space,
hit
I
Game
guess.
Pass, so I'm gonna try it out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'll check that out. And I'm
Uh,
just watching videos of Wingman, and holy crap, man, that game looks incredible.
yeah, no, they did really good.
3 people?
Yeah, 3 people, and it's not even 3 people the way you think. It's like one person who made the game, one writer, and one composer.
Wow.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
That's
The
funny.
credits are the funniest thing because you hit the credits, and then after 12 seconds, it's over, and you're at the publisher part.
All right. So we need those guys to do a crossover game with Microsoft Flight Simulator.
I'm in.
21 campaign missions. How did this person like?
Wow.
I
Yeah.
have no idea.
Remarkable.
It's incredibly impressive. And then I started a while ago on a game, which it is Did any of you play Vesper 5?
Don't think I've
Vesper
heard of it.
5.
Vesper 5 was one of the games by Michael Bro, who's best known for sort of the bro-like genre, I guess. It's this game where you take a move every day. You can only take one move, and you take that move once a day. And if you've taken your move, you cannot take another move again until the next day, right?
Oh,
Right.
like actual real calendar
real
life.
time day, right?
Oh, okay.
It's very odd. It's a very strange feeling to have a game where it just goes, okay, press one button today,
Yeah.
and
Animal Crossing on steroids.
that's it. And I think the most fascinating thing about it for me is that it was this top-down game where you moved, across squares, and if you would move up, and it would reveal what the next squares were, right? You would only reveal the squares that you've been adjacent to. So sometimes you'd move up, and you'd realize that it's a dead end, and you would immediately go like, "Well, it's going to take me 4 days to fix this."
Wow.
Right? Because you'd have to go back to the tile you were on, and then one tile further to start moving again, and then hope that that one is good. So there's a game that's somewhat similar that came out called The Longing, and it's also very strange. It's this you're this little strange creature, and you're trying to stay in a place until your king awakens, and the king will awaken in 400 days, and they mean 400 days, like not video games days, like 400 days. And you can speed it up a little, but if you just boot up the game and then just come back in a year and a half, you'll have finished it. You'll be done. Like that's entirely valid. Like you'll have completed the game, or you can go and like explore and move around. But the funny thing is, if you click somewhere for your character to go, he'll start sort of slowly walking in that direction, and you can just close the game and come back later. Right? He'll keep walking.
Okay.
It's this really fascinating game. I just check in on the Shade, the character, every now and then, and that's it. It's been kind of relaxing. I started playing it a while ago, but you kind of get a feel for it. You kind of get a ritual for it after a while. And now I check in like every few days to just see how things are going.
Wow. And nobody's finished this game yet because it's not out yet. I mean, it hasn't been out for 400 days yet.
Right. I'm guessing you can speed up time a little if you want through in-game mechanics. I'm certain people have finished it. I haven't looked because I don't want to be spoiled.
Wow.
Neat. Yeah, that added a bunch of those games on my list. I want to play some of them, if not all of them.
Nice. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. And Flight Simulator again. Like I just never stops. Never stops. I still need to teach you, Osama. I still need to teach you to fly.
Yeah, I know. We have to set up some time. It's kind of hard to find something in the schedule, but for you, Rami, I'll always have time.
Inshallah, somewhere this week then.
Inshallah.
Rami is like this game that he was talking about. You check in on one every now and then. He's playing Flight Simulator. Every now and then he's on the Flight Simulator heading somewhere.
You click somewhere else. You click somewhere else, and you're like, Rami, go here, and then you check back 4 days later, and I'm playing Flight Simulator. Like, no, Rami, go do this. And you're like, no, I'm playing Flight Simulator.
Yeah, you should actually get what Rami's playing now. It's just Flight Simulator. It's easy updates. It's not.
Give him ideas of stuff.
I don't want more joke sides. Running the IS 2020 over one last year was destructive. Like, can you imagine? For the entire year, I ran this website called is2020over.com because in April of 2020, I thought there was so much nonsense happening that I thought it would be funny to just keep a list. Then for the rest of the year, every day, I get 40 to 50 emails from random people that are just like, "Did you see that this disaster happened?" I'm like, you know, like you have a sad day, and you wake up, and the first thing you get is like 25 news articles about like these people died, this is hurt, here's disaster, more might start, and I'm just like, oh my god, what did I do?
How can you do that but for good news?
Right, I've been thinking about that, but I've just decided that I'm just going to do none of them. Somebody bought is2021over.com, I guess with the hope of selling it back to me.
You can keep it.
And the mistakes were made by that person. I can tell you. Like I'm just like, I'm so happy you're doing it. Like you take care of that.
They
Good
stole,
luck,
it's,
buddy.
it's like they stole a VHS tape from your library, and it turns out it's the ring.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to do less jokey projects this year, just for my own sanity and time. But
Start
we'll
with a
see.
podcast called the Habibis. It's a
Right.
very serious shit.
I'm just excited where this is gonna go. Inshallah khair, and we'll see
We'll see what happens.
happens.
Inshallah.
Yeah. For the time being, I'm just in for chilling with my Habibis.
Yeah,
Talking
absolutely. I'm
games.
having a blast.
Yeah.
And all of the recommendations too. That's I have ulterior
Right.
motives here.
Yeah, no, good. I mean, I'm excited to do this next week. I think this was it for this week. We didn't we it's good that we said inshallah 30 minutes because I'm pretty sure we but let's wrap this one up for now. We'll have more to talk about next week. For everybody listening, thank you so much for coming back for a second episode or subscribing to the podcast if you haven't. I was Rami Ismail, your host for this week.
And I'm Osama Dorias.
And I'm Fawzi Mesmar.
Salam.
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 That was the Habibis podcast for this week. I was Rami Ismail, your host for this episode. You can find me on Twitter at @THA_Rami. My fellow Habibis were Osama Dorias, who you can find on Twitter at Osama Dorias, and Fawzi Mesmar, who you can find on Twitter at Fawzi Mesmar. Intro and outro music were provided by Malik Zubaila, and the logo was provided by Ibrahim Hamdi. The Habibis podcast is a weekly show about 3 game developers drinking good Arab tea, with new episodes launching every Friday, inshallah. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcasting service, or check out thehabibis.com for more information. Thank you for listening, and salam.